Welcome back to Hardball. Well, those 47 Republican senators who sent a letter to the leaders of Iran trying to derail a nuclear deal are continuing to face pushback. This afternoon, Hillary Clinton tweeted, GOP letter to Iranian clerics undermines American leadership. No one considering running for commander-in-chief should be signing on. Well said. The current Secretary of State, John Kerry, also blasted the letter at a Senate hearing today. Here he is.
One of the findings in your report, you said in your report that one of the problems was an antagonism that was developing between the White House and Capitol Hill. You said that prevented a lot of things from taking place, and there'd be a good working relationship. But isn't it basically true that the White House is just as responsible for that antagonism as Capitol Hill is?
I think it's been contributed by both sides. I'd go back 15 years, though, to the early 70s and the period immediately after the war in Vietnam and look at the passage of the War Powers Act in 73, the Turkish arms embargo in 74, the Clark Amendment in 75, examples of Congress moving in and usurping presidential power and authority. And I think what we've seen over the last 15 years is the development of that theme, of a more assertive Congress that no longer honors the traditions that are laid out in our report in terms of the practices of the president's preeminence in foreign policy. And as Henry Hyde said very well in his opening statement, it continues today. What Jim Wright did as Speaker last week to insert himself into direct negotiations with the communist regime in Managua, in my opinion, is fundamentally wrong. It's something that should never have happened. I don't think George Shultz should have let him off the hook yesterday. Thank you all very much. Good work.
My reaction to the letter was utter disbelief. During my 29 years here in the Senate, I never heard of, nor even heard of it being proposed, anything comparable to this. When it says that Congress could actually modify the terms of an agreement at any time, that's flat wrong. They don't have the right to modify an agreement reached executive to executive between leaders of a country.
Well, Secretary Kerry's comments were criticized by a number of Republicans, including the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Senator Bob Corker. Corker cut him off after several minutes.
Mr. Secretary, I know this is a well-written speech, but
not a speech,
you've been at this for 5 minutes.
This is not a speech.
I will say that I didn't sign the letter. I'm very disappointed, though, that you've gone back on your statement that any agreement must pass muster with Congress.
To say that we should not or be communicating is nonsense. Members of Congress every single day communicate with members of other countries.
I'm not particularly happy with being lectured to by the administration about the Constitution. This is an administration who I believe has trampled the Constitution at many turns. I signed the letter to Iran, but you know what? The message I was sending was to you. The message was to President Obama that we want you to obey the law. We want you to understand the separation of powers.
Well, he must have sent the letter to the wrong address, huh? What do you think? Senator Chris Murphy was in the hearing today and asked Secretary Kerry that question about Iran. Senator, thank you for joining us. And we also have syndicated columnist Kathleen Parker, who wrote today that 47 senators were acting like children at a school fair whose single purpose is to dunk the principal. Did you buy that statement by Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, that this letter was actually addressed to the administration, not to the mullahs?
Well, I think a lot of these senators really do want to derail these negotiations. I think people like Tom Cotton sort of see American foreign policy only through a military lens, and so they think that the only way that you're going to divorce Iran from nuclear ambitions is to bomb them. A lot of us are very worried about that path. But, you know, this is just a fundamental misread of the Constitution. The United States Senate has the power to approve treaties. We do not have the power nor the responsibility to approve executive agreements, and there are thousands of executive agreements that have been signed by this president, previous presidents, that have gone into effect without Congress weighing in. So this is just about a fundamental misunderstanding of the Constitution. And yeah, a lot of this is just about politics. A lot of this is just about Republicans trying to continually blow up whatever the president is trying to do internationally.
Well, it's where they set the explosions, which concerns me. I can understand where they want to vote on something afterwards. I'm always pushing for that on war issues. But why do they want to blow it up before there is a deal?
So this is a key point here, and this is where I think maybe Kerry got a little bit off kilter today. Congress does have the ability to weigh in on this deal, because what's going to happen is the president is going to need to waive sanctions for a period of time before Congress repeals them. Congress does have the power to take away the ability of the president to temporarily waive these sanctions. So Congress reserves the ability, once the deal is on the table, in order to do something about it. But it's beyond me as to why they are trying to stop this deal from getting to Congress in the first place, other than... Yeah, well,
it's really beyond you. Come on, you're being rhetorical. You do have a guess as to why they would do this. Could it be they're afraid the deal will look good? That the country will be satisfied with it and say this is the best that we could get in these terrible circumstances, the best option on the table? Or else, why would they fear its culmination if they think the culmination will be unpleasant to the American people, unacceptable to the American people? Why they would want that to happen if that was to happen.
That's what I'm saying. This is political. This is just about trying to frustrate anything good that the president is trying to do. But again, back to my original comment, I do also think that this is an outgrowth of a neoconservative orthodoxy within the Republican Party that continues to regain strength. There is just a group of them that believe that diplomacy is weakness and that the only way that you exert American influence in the world is to drop bombs on people. That hasn't gone very well for the United States in the last 10 years. And Iraq is a country that is, Iran is a country that is 3 times the size of Iraq. We better be pretty careful about the consequences of negotiations failing.
Who's scarier, Ted Cruz or Tom Cotton?
I'm getting to know Senator Cotton. Listen, both of them seem to be much more interested with advancing their own political agendas than really making the Senate work. And unfortunately, there are too few people like Senator Corker, as much as I disagree with what he said in this hearing, who are willing to be a little bit more judicious about these kind of big-ticket international issues.
I guess it's a question, do you want Joe McCarthy to come back or the Bates Motel? Anyway, thank you very much, Chris Murphy from Connecticut, for joining us.
Thanks.
Secretary Kerry today also crashed with Senator Marco Rubio, who suggested the administration's strategy against ISIS was driven by a desire to reach a deal with Iran. Let's watch.
I believe that much of our strategy with regards to ISIS is being driven by a desire not to upset Iran so that they don't walk away from the negotiating table on the deal that you're working on. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Because the facts completely contradict that. Our negotiation is calculated to make sure they can't get a nuclear weapon. And it's really almost insulting that the presumption here is that we're going to negotiate something that allows them to get a nuclear weapon.
I haven't discussed about the nuclear weapon, but I've discussed, and I'm not saying there's a grand bargain. What I'm saying is that I believe that our military strategy towards ISIS is influenced by our desire not to cross red lines that the Iranians have about U.S. military presence in the region.
Absolutely not in the least. Okay. There's no consideration whatsoever as to how they or anybody else.
Well, there you get a little complicated there. I mean, Rubio's... Everybody's out there sporting out there trying to figure out a way to plant their flag, and I don't get it. Why do you think? You wrote against this. What's your view of this? 47, by the way, I was going to point this out at the end of the show, is an unlucky number for the Republicans because in the last campaign they got involved with 47%. Did you think it too?
Yes.
What are they? It's like putting the money back on the roulette wheel. The same number again.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I would disagree with the senator that the only option to the Republicans is to bomb. But I do think my reaction to this was, first of all, I always ask the question, what good does it do? Because we should always be doing things that are good for our goals and for our country. And I feel that this made us look silly. I'm frankly embarrassed for the 47 senators who signed, and I'm extremely sorry that some of those who are seeking higher office would put their names to something like this. It undermines the president. It's basically saying I mean, you're writing a letter to the Ayatollah? Come on. I mean, you know when you're writing letters to the Ayatollah while your president is negotiating, you're probably on the wrong team. And, you know, if indeed they wanted to get that message to Secretary Kerry and the president, as Rand Paul said, well, then by all means, write the letter to them. Take out a full-page ad in the New York Times or the Washington Post.
Well, they have pretty good mail down here in Washington. Why do you think Rand Paul was unusually chicken? Because he's usually a gutsy guy and being an independent guy. He said, I signed it, but I was really sending that letter to President Obama. No, he wasn't. He was sending a letter to another government, and probably, if he enforced the law, in violation of the Logan Act. You can't have your own foreign policy. You can't.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for why he did this. I suspect that comment that he was really speaking to our leaders was to back it up just a tad.
I thought you're right. Anyway, thank you. Pushback. I don't like that new word, pushback.
Yeah, we got to come up with another one. How about...
chicken out? Anyway, thank you, Kathleen Parker, for your very sublime note here.